Welcome back to the channel, guys. So I think we got a really good video today. If you are someone who is interested in becoming a Green Beret, going to Special Forces Assessment and Selection, the Q course, maybe you've already gone in the past, or you're just interested in Special Forces related content, we are going to talk today about the current state of the Special Forces Qualification Course. Now, I got to sit down with one of my close friends who I worked with for a long time, who's currently an instructor at the Special Forces Qualification Course. So this information is straight out of the horse's mouth, and it's about as up to date as it could possibly get. All right, now we are going to cover a bunch of different things here. We need to talk about the previous structure to the Special Forces Qualification Course, what it looked like over the last few years, the current structure, what it looks like right now, how fitness standards have changed, washout rates, what instructors are looking for in a successful student, and most common reasons for failure by students, and then funding issues and some other things that special operations and the Q course is dealing with. Now, before we get started, guys, if you struggle with your sleep like I do or did, sleep apnea, PTSD, snoring, all these different types of things, I tried everything. If you want a guaranteed and quick, easy, cheap, affordable fix, I highly suggest you try Hostage Tape's mouth tape. Okay, I've been using this for almost a month now, and not only has my sleep drastically improved, but so has my wife's, because I don't snore anymore. And everybody I've talked to who has tried this loves it and no longer snores. So if snoring's an issue for you, do yourself and your spouse a favor, go get you some. Use my affiliate link. It should be top right corner of the video. You can click on, head straight there. You also help out the channel. Okay, back to the video. All right, so let's talk about what the Q course sort of looked like over the last 3-4 years. It's been highly controversial. If you follow the space, I'm sure you've probably heard about General Sontag's Q course, right? Came in and basically gutted out the Q course, changed a bunch of it, reduced the amount of time, gutted the standards, pretty much all an attempt to try to make a female Green Beret, okay? Some people think it's a good thing. Most of us did not appreciate what was done to it, okay? So what they did is they lopped off about 6 months of the Q course, dropped it down to about a 12-month course. A lot of the fitness tests were diagnostic, as in couldn't get kicked out of the course. They had this weird setup to where, and we'll talk about what the course looks like now, but this weird setup to where you were like put in mock ODAs based off of your MOS, and then you went through the Q course sort of as an ODA. Big problem with that, when we asked, well, what happens when all your 18 echoes wash out of an ODA? What's the ODA do? And the response from command was, instructors are expected to make sure everyone passes, as in hard to fail, everybody's getting the boot through the door, okay? Not great. We saw a lot of candidates who made it through over the last 3-4 years who probably shouldn't have, okay? And so where are we at now, okay? That all has been reverted, okay? So the course is back to, well, sad to say for some people, like if you made it through that time, good on you, but the course is back to being very difficult and challenging, and we're going to talk about it. So, again, we're not going to get too much previously about how the course, they restructured it, shortened it, made it weird. Now, the way it is, it's honestly pretty much back, other than a few things, to the standard Q course that my era went through, and the vast majority of SF guys that are watching this, it's the same Q course pretty much we went through, okay? We'll just go through how it's structured, each course, each phase, right? So first, of course, you're going to go to Special Forces Assessment and Selection. Anybody watching this doesn't know what that is, there's a million videos on that, okay? This is just to be selected to go to try out and try to make it through the qualification course, okay? So after that, there is now sort of a new course. We used to have, when I went through a course called IUW, Introduction to Unconventional Warfare, it was basically just 6 weeks of physical fitness tests again, land navigation tests again, kind of just to make sure you stayed in shape after you came back from selection. Now what they're doing is a course called SUT, or Squad Unit Tactics Preparation Course. Kind of the same thing. It's also sort of voluntary based off of when you get to the course, if you have enough time to do it before SUT, it's actually not mandatory from what my buddy told me, okay? But it's something designed to help people get ready to go to squad unit tactics, which in my opinion, for me personally, was by far the hardest phase. It's different for everybody, but I found it the most challenging. So I think it's probably a good thing that they're doing stuff like that now. All right, now, of course, you go into SUT, the first big nasty after selection, okay, squad unit tactics. This used to wipe a ton of dudes out. And now SUT is sort of back to what it used to be, okay? Squad unit tactics, it's basically a lot like Ranger School, okay? So if you've seen videos on Ranger School, it's sort of formulated the same way, outdoor, learning how to do raids, ambushes, basic stuff like that, all right? Kind of a suck fest, carry a super heavy ruck, and just trying to make it through, right? Kind of your standard SUT that we all went through over the years. Now, next is, same way when I went through, is SEER school, okay? Prisoner of War school. SEER is survive, evade, resist, escape, trains us how to do all those things. In my opinion, one of the most fun courses, even though it's kind of messed up, things that happen to you in it. I'm not going to get into details, there's videos on that, but I thought it was probably the most fun course in the qualification course. And again, same SEER school has always been. Next, MOS phase, all right? This is depending on what job you got, 18 Echo, 18 Charlie, 18 Bravo, 18 Delta. This is when you're going to do your MOS phase. This is exactly how it was when I went through the course 2013. After that, Robin Sage, okay? So Robin Sage is our big culminating exercise, unconventional warfare exercise, North Carolina. Super cool. Basically the largest LARPing event in the world. Entire towns get in on it, police departments get in on it. You fly helicopters in, land them in neighborhoods and do hits. Super cool. There's whole videos on that, okay? And then after that, language school. Green Berets, we do 6 months of language school. You gotta learn a foreign language. So basically, if you have already gone through the qualification course in the past, you probably just heard that and were like, yeah, that's just the Q course. And yes, so it's back to being the original Special Forces Qualification Course. What does that mean? It's also 18 to 24 months long now, so it's almost twice as long as sort of the Sontag Q course was, which is what it was when I went through, okay, pretty standard. Now, 18 Deltas also have an extra year of training at a school called SOCMS, Special Operations Combat Medic School, I believe, where they do a full year of trauma medicine and learning how to do those types of things before they start the Q course. So for them, you're looking at about 36-month total Q course. Only variation here, 18 Deltas will often go to SEER school before they go to SUT. Not sure why, my buddy didn't really have a good explanation for it. Just might be how the course actually lines up and works after they get out of SOCMS. Now, new Q course compared to when I went through. Some of the biggest changes from who's actually showing up and trying out, okay? So when I went through, there was a decent amount of 18 X-rays. I'd say maybe about 30%, 20 to 30% of the class was 18 X-rays. That's fresh off the street contract. And then the rest were, you know, infantrymen, 82nd Airborne, Cav Scouts, regular Army, whatever. People coming from the conventional military to try out. That has drastically changed. From what my buddy said, it's primarily 18 X-rays now, the Q course, and students in it. Very few 11 Bravos are coming and trying out. Very few people from the conventional military, which is, I don't think it's a great thing for a bunch of different reasons. This isn't the video for that, but it is odd that right now the majority of candidates are coming from the 18 X-ray program rather than conventional, right? So for whatever reason, that's what we're looking at. All right, fitness standards. So as we talked about the last couple of years, they've sort of been gutted to, you know, try to allow women to make it through the course. Also with that, it's turned out that, like, there's no women coming to the course. My buddy said, like, you have maybe 1 in 500 to 1 in 1,000 students actually try to show up, okay? So this entire overhaul of the course to try to have a woman Green Beret, it's kind of a waste of time because they don't even want to come try out anything, right? Now, fitness standards. So you're going to do both an ACFT and what we call the Special Forces PT test. Now, I'm not going to get into what an ACFT is. You can Google it. It's the standard new combat fitness test the military is doing. So you're going to do that. But you're also going to do the standard Special Forces PT test that we got graded on when I went through, which is your push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, 2-mile run, 5-mile run, 12-mile ruck. Time standards, I've got different videos on that you can watch. But they are no longer diagnostic, which means for the most part you have to pass them, or you at least have to pass it before you graduate, right? And then with that, students are taking about one PT test a month, which is about standard from what we used to do. And again, if you fail an event or something like that, you're not necessarily kicked out of the course, but you're expected to uphold your fitness standards, and you have to completely pass by the time you graduate. Now, washout rates, okay? So this has massively changed. As I said, sort of your Sontag era Q course, it was beholden on the instructor to make sure everyone passes, which is absolutely ridiculous, because there's a lot of guys that slip through the cracks at selection, and turns out they are just not meant to be Green Berets, and you find that out in the qualification course. So having a system to where just because you passed selection, you're just expected to graduate, not a good system. That was causing a lot of problems for us in the regiment because of that. But now that's not the case anymore. Okay, so for SFAS selection, the pass rate or selection rate, and this is going to vary class by class. Some classes are a lot higher than others. Okay, anywhere from about 20 to 25%. So 1 in 4, 1 in 5 guys at the class will get selected to allow them to go to the Q course. Okay, when I went through the Q course, we lost almost another 50% of guys throughout the course. I don't think it's quite that high. But the recycle rate, so again, if you fail a class, let's say you fail SUT, you're not automatically just kicked out of the course. You go through a process, which I'll outline here in a second how it works. A recycle process, okay? If you fail one class, pretty much are always, unless it's for some type of moral type of thing, or breaking soft values, cheating, stealing, whatever. If you just fail due to, you couldn't pass the class for whatever reason, about 15% of each class, like SUT, about 15% on average, again, some classes are lower, some are higher, of students are recycling. Okay, that means they're having to get held over to the next class or being kicked out of the course, right? So how it works, you get one recycle pretty much free, as in, hey, you just didn't pass, you didn't meet the grading standards, whatever, you get recycled, you try again. If you pass or if you fail again, you go to the board. So you go to the commander, you sit in front of him, and you're allowed to basically plead your case why you should be allowed to stay in the Q course. The commander is then going to make the decision if you are either allowed a second recycle or if you are going to be relieved, okay? And there's 3 different types of relief you could face. You could face a 1-year relief, which means you're relieved, but you're allowed to come back to the Q course 1 year later. You could face a 2-year release, so you're released and allowed to come back to the Q course 2 years later, or what we call NTR'd, never to return. That means your dreams of becoming a Green Beret are dead forever. Now, again, typically those are integrity type issues that'll get you that, but that's how that process works. Now, there is some leeway because money is a concern, right? It's a lot of money to make a Green Beret, and especially the 18 Deltas, that there are some cases for 18 Deltas, because they're the $1 million babies, getting 3rd recycle opportunities, okay? But don't expect that, all right? So, moving on. What are the instructors looking for? I thought this was really interesting, okay? Because there's 1,000 different videos out there from Green Berets, myself including, about how to pass selection, how to get selected, okay? These three things I'm going to tell you are the 3 main things the instructors are looking for on who they're going to select and pass the class, okay? And it's not going to be the ones you think. It's not peak physical fitness and be a good dude and all the things you always hear, okay? 3 things. Applying soft characteristics as a lifestyle. What does that mean? So if you look up soft characteristics, integrity, honor, things like that, actually living your life in that way and interacting with your team that way. So this is kind of, where you might hear be a good dude, but expand it a little bit further into that, right? If you are not meeting the soft characteristics, you are definitely going to be spotted by instructors, and they're going to make sure that you're gone. Okay, so if you're going to the Q course, make sure you're familiar with those values, and talk to yourself honestly, do you actually live those as a general lifestyle? Okay, number 2, the ability to retain information. Apparently this one is really a new struggle for students that hasn't been in the past generations. A lot of that I think is because of short attention spans and phones right in front of our face and doom scrolling. But not being able to retain information, and then basically what that means is making the same mistakes repeatedly. Okay, if you're somebody, there's a saying that in SF where you're free to make mistakes but never make the same mistake twice. This is kind of where that comes in. If you can't retain information, you're not going to make it through the course. And number 3, which is probably the biggest one, and another one this generation is really struggling with, and that is managing your emotions under stress. Okay, having emotional maturity. It's one of those things that everybody thinks they have until they're putting super shitty situations like squad unit tactics where your back is breaking, you're dehydrated, you haven't slept. Then you might see that you become a little bit more emotionally unstable, you get frustrated, and that is a huge thing that instructors are looking for. Okay, so those are the big ones, right? Living soft values and characteristics as a lifestyle. What was it? Ability to retain information, and then managing your emotions under stress. Those are the 3 most important characteristics that they're looking for right now. Okay, now what are the most common reasons for failure amongst students? Okay, there's obviously some carryover in the things we just talked about, but from what my buddy said, main causes he sees from failure in this younger generation. Not everyone, obviously, right? Some are awesome super soldiers, some aren't, but as a whole, they are immature, they come entitled, and they can't control their emotions. Okay, again, this isn't everyone, but there's a lot of students who are struggling with these 3 things. Okay, and a lot of that, maturity, emotional maturity, all those sorts of things, they're requirements to be a Green Beret, and you have to be able to demonstrate them in the course. Now, another one, showing your frustration, which is kind of lack of emotional maturity, outbursts like that. Getting angry, inability to handle stress, those are all going to be big flags for instructors, all right? What they're also saying is, overall, now there's some studs, but overall, classes are not that physically fit. There's a lot of guys who are not in good enough shape to be going through the course, and that's obviously a huge hindrance, okay? So make sure you are in peak physical fitness conditions. You do not want to go through this type of course not in shape, right? It's also, if you get worn down physically, you're going to get worn down mentally, and then you're going to be more emotional, more prone to outbursts, anger, frustration, all those things. Okay, so physical fitness always going to be key. Another big one we're seeing is this is very new as a generation after 20 years of the global war on terror. Is now we're having entire Q course classes with what my buddy is calling COVID captains, and then NCOs with no combat experience. Okay, so for the vast majority now, there's none of these soldiers have combat experience. Okay, and these captains who are coming, they definitely don't, because they did their tenure as a lieutenant during the COVID times, right? So they have not done a whole lot, and that is not going very well for them overall in the Q course. Okay, so different when I went through, you'd have half the class was guys from the 82nd or 101st that had multiple combat deployments already before they went to the Q course. It's a very different environment now. All right, so the last one, this video is going kind of long, sorry guys, but I want you to have all this information. All right, the last one is sort of conventional, higher conventional command and funding issues. Okay, so everything has become very, very risk averse, right? So you can't smoke the students if they're, you have to have a very good reason. By smoke, I mean physically destroy them with push-ups, sit-ups, running, all the stuff if they mess up, which they used to do to us all day, every day, just because, for no reason. You have to be very careful as an instructor if you're doing that, because you could just be reported and fired. So it's a little bit soft in that regard. Also, Conventional high command, we're talking about Department of Defense level, thinks, you know, special operations is not going to be that important going forward, which I think is super naive. But they are pulling a lot of the soft funding. Okay, so that means investment costs per soldier in the Q course are something that's being looked at a lot more strict. Okay, so like I mentioned, with 18 Deltas, the $1 million training babies, they are maybe getting a little bit more leeway to try to make sure they make it through the course, because we don't have a whole lot of money to waste on these things. All right, now I'm probably going to do a whole separate video on what cadre are looking for, so I can really like deep dive into that for you guys if you're getting ready to go. But I think this is just kind of a good overview of again, the current state of Special Forces Qualification Course, because again, it ebbs, flows, changes, like they move things around, it's constantly changing. But this is from a SFQC instructor, all this information, so it's, you know, the best we got for right now, and that's obviously very different than it was a year or 2 years ago. So hope you guys found this one interesting, and I will catch you in the next one.